Split the seeds, I'm chosen. Sing me sour toting. Buffin flower poet. That's that Guns N' Roses. Yeah, I got Guns N' Roses. That's that Guns N' Roses. Yeah, I got Guns N' Roses. Solar blast. Get the bag. Then I dash to my spacecraft while I laugh. I don't rap for cash. I do it cash. You wouldn't rap if it weren't a fad.
Alright, let's do some breaking points. It's been a minute. Looks like we got Ben Burgis on here.
It's great to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again, Krystal.
Not because I like ever have disagreed with him, but it's just whole vibe. Just doesn't pass the vibe check, to be honest.
So we were just talking about the whole thing with Rogan, the artist leaving, Spotify labeling, Jon Stewart's take, all of these things. And I saw you have a new piece in the Daily Beast of all places, where you write, progressives who want Joe Rogan off Spotify should be careful what they wish for. And the subhead is weakening free speech norms and making it easier for tech CEOs to suppress misinformation will not work out well for the dissident left. Explain, my friend.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to me, although judging by my social media timelines, not to a lot of other people, which is that these platforms aren't controlled by like leftists, right? These platforms are controlled by billionaire CEOs who have every reason in the world to A, want to stay on the government's good side, and B, to not want their wealth to be redistributed, which is certainly, like kind of the main thing that, that we want. And so I think that if we weaken free speech norms, if we make it easier to crack down on so-called misinformation, that's not going to go well for us, because people will say things like, oh, sure, I don't want to censor opinions, but you can censor people for being wrong about facts. But every political argument is at least partially an argument about facts, right? Does raising the minimum wage really increase unemployment? How many people really are killed by drone strikes or civilians?
The thing that I've noticed in my own content career here that I'm taking a stab at, the censorship on social media, on media platforms in general, almost never really affects the people, not only that you'd want it to affect, but that maybe deserve some canceling. Like, Joe Rogan's gonna be fine, but what does happen is, like, for my, like, TikTok, I upload a TikTok that is totally fine. I may be swearing it, but it's like, the TikTok I uploaded today, tried to. It was about Bill Maher freaking out about the pregnant male emoji. And I was just like, oh yeah, well, there are pregnant males, so it's a thing that exists. Why not have an emoji for it? And that got taken down for hate speech. Now, I think about that and I'm like, it's almost, it's like this chilling effect, right? Like, you hear about big content creators getting these kind of warnings and strikes, maybe rightfully so, maybe not. Whoopi Goldberg getting a timeout from her network. You hear about these things, and then when it happens to you, you just feel totally powerless, because you're like, there's nothing they can do about it, but at the same time, it doesn't actually even really affect them that much. Like, they're going to be fine. They're still going to have voices. They're still going to have platforms. But for me, it affects me a lot. It's like, wow, I just, worked, like, editing that TikTok for a good amount of time and, like, formatting it, exporting it, putting it on the site. And, like, now that's useless to me. It's like, okay. What do I do? I appealed it. I don't expect to get anything out of it. It's like, there's definitely... it's a chilling effect. It's like, yeah, we're just okay with that now. It's like the days of like crazy uploads to YouTube and like, just people getting out there and shaking their dick, it's like, that is a thing of the past now. Everything is scrutinized, everything is sanitized, and that shit sucks, dude. That does suck. I don't know what kind of world people who advocate for that kind of shit, and I do see it a lot on the left. Those leftist Twitter. I'm in those replies. I'm in those QRTs. I see you motherfuckers cheering on like some of the worst shit imaginable when it comes to like ideas and you know, expression of those ideas. I see you trying to cancel people like Vosh, who like is totally within his like there's nothing you could possibly say about Vosh except for, I know he has some controversies when he was younger, but he was edgy on the internet. Like in terms of his content that he makes professionally, if you want to silence someone like Vosh, like what kind of world do you really want to build? You know? Like what's your end game there, buddy? Like are we all just gonna live in padded rooms with the only ability to send happy or moderately, but not like scarily, moderately sad faces to each other by text? And that's how we communicate, so that way no one ever gets offended. And so, I'm doing the conservative meme, right? But it does, I guess I've been too online recently. It gets to you seeing that kind of shit. And also the like TikTok thing earlier today, getting banned for hate speech. Like I wasn't banned, but I got a warning. If it happens again, I will get banned from my TikTok, which is like, okay. I mean, I don't have that many followers or anything, but Jesus Christ, dude. Like, I didn't do anything. I was saying I'm saying trans rights. I'm trying to add, like, hey, what the fuck, you know?
And so both sides always accuse the other one of spreading wrong facts. And the people who get to decide are ultimately going to be accountable to these billionaire CEOs. I mean, I just give one small example in the piece that I think makes the point, which is, imagine a world where podcasts and Spotify already existed in 2002. Who do you think would be more likely to get the censorship hammer for misinformation? People who agreed with the government, who agreed with the New York Times that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, or people who said that like Bush administration officials were conspiring to mislead the public about it?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a sort of a debate ender point right there.
Yeah, it's a perfect point.
But so let me play devil's advocate for a second, and it's
Sure.
tough. It's tough for me because I'm like 1,000,000% in your camp. But how do you respond to the people who say, listen, I'm tired of hearing the free speech angle to this because this has nothing to do with free speech because it's a private company that we're talking about, not the government?
Yeah, I'd say that if you're a right-wing libertarian, that makes perfect sense from your point of view.
Right.
If you're a leftist, it makes no sense.
That's right, yeah.
That the same way we wouldn't say,
wait, what?
if you work at Walmart and you don't like the working conditions there and you don't think you're paid enough.
Whoa. Flip that. Right? Am I tripping? If you're a right-wing libertarian, you think that corporations have total freedom from the government and they can do whatever the fuck they want for profit, and then the market will decide. The fuck?
Don't demand union representation, a higher minimum wage. Just go find somewhere else to work because it's all freedom of association. Like you don't have to work there. They don't have to employ you. Whatever. We understand that the government is not the only source of power that can be problematic in our society.
So one of the other things that you bring up in this piece is you cite this Move On petition where they want Rogan to be completely banned from Spotify, and they accuse him of being a white supremacist. And so this gets into a whole other issue. Something I've taken issue with is there's this very caricaturish view of who Joe Rogan is. If you just listen to the media interpretation of what his podcast is, you'd think every guest was an anti-vaxxer, that it's like white nationalist anti-vaccine hour on Joe Rogan all day, every day. What is the reality? Why do liberals in particular, but some elements of the left as well, want to sort of push him towards the right-wing camp and say, oh, this guy's just a right-wing propagandist?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in the piece, I mean, I run through a lot of, some of the most obvious pieces of counter evidence here, like the fact that in 2018 when the Trump administration instituted its, child separation policy, that Rogan had this like 2-minute rant that I linked to where he says that if you don't have a problem with this, you're not on Team Human. In the next year, he had Cornel West on, which he said was one of his all-time favorite episodes of the show because West is brilliant, which is a position I don't hear a lot from white supremacists. And yeah, and also let's not forget, right?
You're totally coping right now. Here's the thing: if Joe had any left-wing bona fides left, you wouldn't have to reach back that far. You wouldn't have to be, oh well, he had a black professor on once and he said he liked it, so checkmate. Like, dude, if you find yourself doing that, like, what do we? This is, dude, fuck Ben Burgis, bro. What a cornball. He's such a weirdo. He just always gave me bad vibes every time I see him. Every time I hear this dude speak, bad fucking vibes. He's leaning into the Glenn Greenwald track.
I mean, who is, I would think, I don't know. I mean, like if you were a white supremacist, unless you're so, unless you're so far off the grid in your white supremacism that you're, that like you don't want to support anyone, you think it's all the Jews or whatever. Like they have, if you're going to support a mainstream candidate, presumably it would be Trump. I'm not saying everybody supports.
You lose all credibility with me as a left winger if you do this fucking meme. If you do the like, well, he doesn't wear a pointed hood and burn a cross on his lawn, so is he really a white supremacist? It's like, dude, we know that white supremacy is far beyond individuals being like horrific racists. It's a system that we need to work to dismantle and that people participate in, knowingly or not. And it's the whole like, yo, like, not being racist isn't enough. You have to be anti-racist. Like, that's what we're talking about here. Like, what the fuck, dude? Joe Rogan certainly advocates for white supremacy. 100%. He has no interest in dismantling racist systems in this country. Zero interest.
Trump is a white supremacist, because I don't think that's true. But I would think that would be the white supremacist candidate. Joe Rogan supported Bernie Sanders in the primaries, which also doesn't seem very, like a very white supremacist thing to do. I think that the more honest thing to say about Rogan's politics is that he's a little bit all over the place. That I wrote an article with Michael Brooks about this, actually, when that Sanders endorsement controversy happened, for Jacobin, and I think
you're 2 years in the past, my friend. 2 years. Like, 2 years ago, yeah, you could have maybe said that. You could have said, like, Joe Rogan's a bit all over the place. He kind of leans right sometimes, but he has some strong leftist values and ideals that are respectable, and I like listening to him for that reason. I like listening to him sometimes feed his, like, hog audience some actually, like, healthy ideas now and then. You can't say that anymore. You can't, dude. You can't fucking say that anymore.
That
it's just not true.
The truth is that if you watch and listen to a lot of Joe Rogan,
it's simply not true.
He has a mixture of guests with very different views.
Ooh!
He's
not having you, bitch boy. Like, is that what you're trying to do? You trying to get on Rogan? Fucking coward, dude. I see you. I know what you're doing.
Because it's his.
He's looking. You see him looking off to the side. He's looking at his inbox. Like, oh man, is Joe Rogan watching this live right now? Maybe he'll email me right now. Maybe I'll get on the show.
His
like,
idea of how you should be a host, and like sometimes, I think out of genuine agreement, right? That like there's a lot of like, oh yeah, man, good point. From.
I want to see Hassan go hard on Joe Rogan, bro. I want to see Hassan because he's like the one who has the most buzz, and I feel like were Joe not a complete fucking fraud, he would have him on. I think he's already gone too hard, right? Like he's not been like nice to Rogan on the come up. I mean, he actually has, but not. He's also called him like an ape and shit like that. But I feel like you're at the point now where you should push hard on Rogan. Be like, this fucking pussy won't have me on his show because he hates free speech. He's a fucking liar. He hasn't had a bona fide lefty on in 2 years now, or at least a year since Kyle Kalinske. And that's it. And that's the only one. Like, Jimmy Dore doesn't fucking count, you fucking weirdo. Call him out, please. We need it. We need someone needs to take this man down. That's the thing. He's not invincible. Like, we saw that with that Australian dude. That was like the slightest bit of pushback, and the dude crumbled. The dude immediately went to like, well, can we verify that study? Can we, like, he went to all like textbook squirmy little worm tactics. I would just love to see someone really give him some fucking pushback and just see this dude fall the fuck apart. I mean, they say, like, to kill God, you just need to make him bleed. Rogan, once you get him bleeding, it will be an ocean of blood. It's a tidal wave, a fucking tsunami of blood, because he's that fragile. He's a fucking fragile white dude. That's all he is. Talking about fragile masculinity, white fragility, all of that. But this is the thing, though, is everyone knows, this dude included, you don't get on Rogan's podcast unless you lick his ball sack. Everyone who goes on his show, even Kyle, as much as I like Kyle, and I agree with him on so much, and I would like to see Kyle actually grow a pair and push back on Joe next time he gets a chance to go on, if ever. No, it's all yes men on Joe's show. Even if you're left wing, you better be doing what this guy's doing. Fellatiate, bro. Get the fellatiating.
With a wide range of figures. Although I would point out that some of the most memorable times he's pushed back against people have been like Dan Crenshaw or Dave Rubin, who
Steven Crowder. Candace Owens.
Yeah.
That's right. That was his biggest disagreements were with those people.
Yeah, so I think that it's kind of crazy.
Years ago, bro. Fucking years ago.
I think the reason, as far as I can tell, is this. Why is it that right-wingers who actually disagree with Rogan about more subjects than the left disagrees with him on are so willing to claim him and say, oh, Joe...
What did he argue with Candace Owens about? Almost nothing, except he argued about climate change. Now he's not doing that, bro. And when did this come out? February 6th? Yeah, the other podcast had already come out. This came out today. Well, I don't know when they filmed it, but like this is recent enough where we just saw with our own two eyes. Sorry to people who have one eye. I'm just kidding. Ableism. 2 eyes. We saw him egg on Jordan Peterson's deranged climate denialism rant. Come on, dude. You're unserious. You're unserious.
Whereas
you guys are reaching at shit. It's like, whoa, well, 10 years ago, he it's like, dude, we're here and now. We have information here and now. Address that information.
Even when he endorsed Bernie Sanders, there were a certain number of, again, mostly more mainstream.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it, dude. I don't buy that he would have actually voted for Bernie. If it had actually, I think he knew it was a safe bet that Bernie wasn't going to get the nomination, so he threw in with it, thinking it would give him some cred, and it fucking worked, apparently. And I think if Bernie had gone all the way and it had been Trump versus Bernie, he would have, like, kind of slowly, he would have had all those he would have had Jordan Peterson on, he would have had all the fucking right-wing nut jobs on, and he would have flipped. He would have been that process to turn people away from Bernie. He would be like, yeah, I believed in Bernie too, but now that I'm learning about Ancapistan, I'm thinking, wow, Bernie doesn't really make any sense. Why don't come with me, audience? Come with me over here to Trump. He's the real Bernie. Like, that's what would have happened. And this fucking guy would have been there the whole time, like, twiddling his dick, hoping he can get a spot on the show.
Extreme liberals, a lot of it was like bad faith, supported by supporters of other candidates. But even some people on the left were like, no, we don't want the world's most popular podcaster, to support our guy. And I think a lot of it, what it gets down to is whether you really believe that you can win, whether you see politics as a realistic project to change the world, or whether you see it as kind of taking a symbolic moral stand against everything that's wrong with the world. And I think a lot of people on the left in practice unfortunately, are taking the second view, which means that if you have 10 positions and 7 of them are pretty closely aligned with you, and one of them's ambiguous, and a couple of them are bad, then you'll like laser in on the bad ones because you think, oh, the question you're asking is essentially like, is he a good person who's going to go to heaven like us, or is he like a bad person who's going to go to hell? And like that's like, oh well, whatever, here are his sins, that like here are the bad positions, rather than is there important overlap here such that like why not play?
Know who projects religion? Religious people. I love that. Like it's always religious people, and that's why the fact that he would do this, and I don't know if he's religious, but it kind of makes me think he is. They always do the thing, oh, the left is a new religion. They're just, look at the new sins. It's like, religion does not have a monopoly on morality. Like, people are allowed to have morals outside of your fucking weirdo fairy tales, okay? It's not all, like, it's just, I always hate that argument. It always comes from it's like, yeah, people think he did bad things and they're listening. It's not a list of sins. It's like, okay, this is criticism, dude. It's called criticizing. And keep that same energy for CNN next time Joe Rogan criticizes them. How could Joe Rogan listing the sins of CNN? It's a new religion for it. It's like, dude, you can flip. I hate those kind of arguments that you can just flip either way. I just had like an epiphany. And maybe I'll have to correct it a little because I'm trying to think if any of my arguments are kind of actually like that, because sometimes they are. But usually I only do that to point out the hypocrisy of arguments. I only say like, yeah, I can take your argument and flip it for my advantage. I could say the same exact thing you're saying. And I don't want to. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be so where the wind blows. And I feel like that's where modern conservatism has broken the brains of Americans, is that it puts everything into this like cynical state of, we all know that we're lying to each other, but we're doing it because that's how the game is played. So you have to like, who can do it better is more important than if we should be doing it at all, I guess. Does any of this make sense? I'm having this in real time right now. I'm gonna have to follow this train of thought a little more. Maybe I can compile it a little better. But it does feel that way. So much of modern debate is like it's the fucking.
That's an insightful point though about why the left's inclination is to just find the flaws and judge them rather than trying to pull into a coalition and use the powerful platform he has.
So to your point, yeah, he's had on Cornel West, Bernie Sanders, me, Abby Martin, David Pakman, and he's also had on the likes of Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro, and he's had us on like a number of times. And I remember having a conversation with somebody about this at one time, and I was like, well, what's the connecting tissue there? And the connecting tissue from Joe's perspective is that in his judgment, these people, agree or disagree with them, are honest and authentic. Now, I don't happen to agree with his perspective on that, because I don't think Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder are honest or authentic, but that's his reading of the situation, and it's pretty clear to see that that is his reading of the situation. So...
Wait, you guys...
I thought he was hitting a bong for a second there. I was looking at my phone, I was here... I'm like, yeah. That would be... I would change everything. I would take back everything I just said. I'd delete this video from the internet. I would take back everything wrong. He smokes weed. He's cool, just like Bill Maher. It's all good. All right, yeah. Let's cut this video out.
Have matching. You have a Starbucks Workers United mug, and you have
nice.
a shirt.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
awesome.
I just had to call that out.
Sick, dude.
So the harshest criticism one could give, if they're looking at this fairly, in my opinion, of Joe, is that yes, he's sort of apolitical from time to time, or he views himself that way, so he's wishy-washy in a certain sense. He's open-minded, which is a good quality on the one hand, but he could also be open-minded to a fault. He's sort of an enlightened centrist with some left-wing views and some right-wing views. But yeah, to the broader point, I think the breakdown is the left used to have a stance of like, we believe in purity of policy. So we have these broad goals that we're pushing for, like universal health care, free college, ending the wars. Like, there's a purity of policy that made up the left, that constituted the left. Now that has transferred to, we care more about purity of character, which I couldn't care less about purity of character.
The problem is there's a thin line between the two, right? Oh, you're not for mandating that every single business in the United States creates non-gendered bathrooms by next year or under penalty of death. You're not a real leftist. You know, like you can the two unfortunately interact. If someone doesn't think you're pure of character, they're not going to think that you're very pure of your policy goals either. So unfortunately, it always kind of comes down to that. And the advantage that conservatives have over leftists and have always had, they always lose. Remember that. Throughout all of history, conservatives have done nothing but lose. They win from time to time. Individuals will win. Individuals will get away with horrific crimes against humanity in the name of their version of purity. But on the whole, the trend line has always been towards conservatives getting their fucking cheeks clapped. But the advantage they have that allows them to hold their own on any amount of level is that they're able to unite much easier because of their belief structure. And their purity often revolves around very simple and but also malleable to power core beliefs. It's like all you have to, for Trump to be a Christian, all he has to do is say like, yeah, we're bringing Jesus back, and go get your Bible, and I love Jesus, and people are like, word, everything else is forgiven. And then on the other side of that, they also kind of, conservatism is all about like subservience to power structures. So once you get people all aligned around those simple beliefs like Jesus is God, Jesus is the only truth, the only way to heaven, all of that. Once you can get people around that, then down the line, it's very easy to keep those people in order. And it's very easy once you have, there's people power. Once you have that many people in order, that gives them a lot of power that leftists will never have, because leftists are a little more complicated and diverse than that. And they're not as easily swayed by at least not all of them, just like singular, simple values. And people have tried to do that, and some of them do better than others on the left, but there's always too many other people adding to the pot and dividing and having their own subsection, and some cringy people taking things too far. It's like the left would do well, and this is always in the back of my head when I do this. It's always kind of like my project in a sense, long term, is the left would do well to have some kind of religious grounding, some kind of spiritual, transcendent axioms that could unite them in a way that the right is able to unite. It would take that trend line that we're currently on, where conservatism is constantly on the downward, and it might actually just might shoot exponential after that, because that's really the only advantage they have. But I think I'm going to end it there. That was a nice little rant. I guess I'll let Kyle finish.
Supposed to be the people who say, I don't care if you were a murderer and you were reformed and rehabilitated in jail. If you were really reformed and rehabilitated in jail, you deserve a second chance. Now we say you had a blog post in 1994 that was slightly offensive, so you're kicked out.
Nobody's going to jail though, Kyle. Oh, this is such a lame confusion. I'm going to have to go on another fucking rant. There's such a difference in freedom of speech between you are going to jail for the rest of your life for what you said in a blog post 10 years ago. And yeah, you're going to lose out on some opportunities because people now look at you a little different. Your social score has kind of depleted. It's not always a great thing. I don't always like that, but it's also not something you can really control. It's outside. It's not a government. It's not the government doing it. That's the thing. It's like if it was the government arresting people for blog posts 10 years ago, we would have a problem. There would be people in the streets. That is a serious violation of what the government's job is. Okay, but it's not what's it's not murder. I'm someone who murdered somebody 10 years ago and somebody who wrote a somewhat racist blog 10 years ago are worlds apart. There is a wide gully between those two, all right? And people know this, dude. I know they know this. I know that. Look at this fucking gremlin, dude. I know he knows. He's just trying to get, he's like, oh, these two people have been on Rogan. I'm one step closer, Benny boy.
Out of the club, so I don't know what led to that breakdown, but you could speak on that, Ben.
Yeah, and sometimes people literally believe both at the same time. I mean, that
No, that's right. Very common.
Yeah.
One step closer to the shriveled, emaciated, HGH-ridden ballsack of my Lord and Savior, Joe Rogan.
It's a war on nuance is what it is. That's what it drives me crazy, Ben. It's a war on nuance. It's like you're with us all the way or not at all. And again, not on policy, on personal character, which is so weird to me because personal character is so arbitrary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do I care about, do I care about somebody's personal character if I'm like their friend? Sure. I have a, do I care from the perspective of trying?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been Sunday school, and that's how I feel. Azazel Az. February 6th, 2022. God bless America. And get home safe. Get home safe, everyone.